Hi, my name is Brandon and I'm an alcoholic and addict in recovery. And today I read a section in Living Sober about eating or drinking something, usually sweet, in order to help cope with cravings in early stages of recovery. And this is advice that's been given from the early days of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's been especially noted that eating a little bit of chocolate sometimes can help allay cravings that you might have, especially for alcohol, but I think it works for other drugs too. Scientifically, the eating of something sweet has hit some similar spots in the brain as alcohol and drugs do. In fact, that's why some people can get addicted to sweets and things like that. So we've got to be careful with using sweets too much as a substitute for alcohol and drugs. In fact, we don't want to use it as a substitute, but using them as a way to cope with cravings and to get used with the feeling of letting a craving come and go is something that people have done for a long time in recovery. And that's the important thing, the idea that a craving can come and go. But what jumped out at me here was an important, very important concept. And what they say that made me think of this was maybe it's just the imagination, but the yin for a shot does seem to be sharper when the stomach is empty. At least it's more noticeable. So they're saying that, you tend to want to drink more when you're hungry. And that is very true. And that's why for people in recovery, we are taught that we need to avoid letting ourselves get hungry, angry, lonely, and tired. And that's the concept of HALT that's very important in recovery circles. And there's specific reasons for this. When you're hungry, as the book says here, you are, and it doesn't make a lot of logical sense, but hunger is something that drives people to drink. Drinking is if you think about it, drinking is a very easy way for your body to get instant calories. They're empty calories. They're not nutritious calories, but they're instant calories. So not only are you getting some instant calories in your body, but you're getting the mental hit of the drugs that are in the alcohol. So it does make sense that you would have a craving for alcohol when you're hungry. When you're angry, look, we all know that in our addictions, we used alcohol to help us cope with negative emotions. And sometimes we would use alcohol to help us forget about being angry or to help us forget about being sad or lonely. And so it's important for us to monitor those things. And keeping our anger in check is one of the reasons why a spiritual program is so important in Alcoholics Anonymous and in all of the different recovery disciplines that are prevalent today, and trying to keep to a program that allows you to constructively and productively deal with those times when you're upset with another person, rather than letting that upset develop into a sobriety threatening anger, is a very important skill for people in recovery to hone and to learn. As far as being lonely, we talk in all sorts of ways about the importance of fellowship in recovery and in sobriety. Don't mistake loneliness for being alone. In my recovery, I have plenty of times where I want to be alone, and that's okay. But what we have to make sure we're not doing is we're not isolating ourselves from other people purposefully. That we're not keeping ourselves apart especially if we're doing so to try to prevent other people from noticing our behaviors. If we're worried that our friends in recovery are going to see us acting a certain way and start expressing concern about that, and so we just stop going around them, that's a bad sign that we're backsliding toward our addictive behaviors. And so loneliness, also, it's an emotion that's easy to cope with by just hitting the bottle or by using some drugs. Especially if you are using drugs that are used in a group. Your easy way to go back to find other people to be with is to use drugs with them. Then that's why it's so important to develop a fellowship in sobriety, so that you have an alternative to that, so that if you're feeling lonely, you can go to a meeting and have some fellowship afterwards, or get a group of people together to go out for coffee, or reach out to some friends in recovery and say, hey, I can't be alone right now. I need some help. I need some company. So really important. And then as far as being tired, look, I don't know about you, but there were times in my addiction where when I was tired, my go-to pick me up was not coffee, it was beer. Because I could get a few beers in me and I would be right back up. Um, there are certainly plenty of people who have other drugs that they enjoy strictly for the stimulant properties of them. And so, being tired is definitely a trigger for people. And so that's why hunger, anger, loneliness, being tired, these things are things that we need to learn how to cope with in healthier ways, because we've been coping with these things as we were in our addiction. We just coped with them by indulging in our addiction. And so we have to learn not only how to cope with them when they come up, but how to prevent them in the first place. Hunger is a big one. Most of us probably in our addictions weren't really thinking much about what we ate. We were eating whatever was convenient, whatever sounded good. A lot of times we were indulging our desires when we ate, rather than eating with the goal of survival. I have found that idea to be very important recently, because in the beginning of my recovery, I was indulging my desires. If I wanted pizza, I had pizza. If I wanted a hamburger, I had a hamburger. My thinking was, I'll just eat whatever I want, because I'm just, I've got to deal with so much else in my recovery. I'm just going to eat whatever I want. Um, but as time has gone on, I've found it important to refocus on the idea of, I need to get back to eating for survival. So eating what I need to eat, not more than that, and really looking at the contents of what I'm putting in my body. Am I eating a bunch of greasy food because it makes me feel good to do that? That's not necessarily something I need to be doing all the time. It's okay to do that once in a while, but most of the time I should be focused on eating just enough so I'm not hungry, and eating good things. You know, this also applies to being tired. In the beginning of my recovery, I really liked to stay up late, because my thinking was, well, I can stay up late now and have a good time and do things, late at night, and play video games and watch movies. And I can get up in the morning without being hungover. And I've got more time to spend in the morning because I'm not trying to fit in getting high and things like that. And I was tired all the time and grumpy, and that led to the anger problem. And as I've gotten further along in my recovery, it's become much more important for me to get a good night's sleep, because I realized the value of, waking up with a clear mind and clear intentions about the day, and not just indulging my desires to do whatever I want, to really get some discipline in my life. And that's where, we have to employ a little bit of discipline when we approach things like the way that we eat for hunger, the way that we interact with other people for anger and loneliness, and the way that we take care of our bodies and our minds through things like getting healthful rest on a daily basis. So, for me, HALT is really important, but it's something we could talk about a lot. And I think that the bottom line is it's another way in recovery where we have to engage in a little bit of discipline, a little bit of common sense about what are the healthful ways to handle these potential triggers in our recovery, and then building our program around that a little bit. So I could go on a little bit more about that, but I just wanted to go over HALT a little bit today because it is an important concept in recovery. It's an important concept for people to keep in mind. And it stood out after reading this chapter that talked primarily about using sweets to help cope with cravings. It really jumped out at me as a good time to cover what's involved in HALT and why it's an important concept for us in recovery. Hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you back here with more tomorrow morning.